Hello, everyone. This is Kelly Covert, and you are here with us at home with Symphoria. And today I have one of our Symphoria violinists, Margie Cooper, here with me. Margie, how are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you, Kelly, and thank you for inviting me to do this.
Well, I'm so excited to get to sit down and chat. And I know that I've said this before, but one of the things that I love about this format is we get to see a little piece of your home. And I see this beautiful needlepoint picture behind you
Yes,
of a
yes.
violin. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it is beautiful, and I wish you could see more detail, but my mother did this for me when I was in college. It was kind of a graduation present, and it's only been through the years of looking at it really for years in my studio that I've realized what she did for me. Because at the time, I feel like I kind of said, "Oh, great, thank you." And didn't realize the amount of work that had gone into it. So yeah, it touches my heart every time I walk into my studio.
I love that. And I love to see like little glimpses of where people practice and what inspires them. So that's nice to know that that's in your studio.
Yes.
So, how have you been during this time at home? What have you been finding yourself up to?
Well, okay. So, I mean, I think people are dealing with this quarantine differently. I am loving it. I'm having the luxury to practice in greater detail the basics and all the maintenance things that I normally don't have time to do. I've read, gosh, probably 20 books at this point. We walk every day. We cook great food. We've done some gardening. Um, what can I say? I mean, not that I don't miss work desperately, but this has been a wonderful time to kind of regroup and just get organized, I guess. I'm
Hmm.
super happy with what I'm able to practice because I can go through a whole routine of really basic technical stuff and kind of take myself back to checking absolutely everything I'm doing and then progress up to etudes, which define a specific technique, and then to sight reading, which is great for orchestral skills because keeping your eyes moving ahead of where you're actually playing is a great skill for orchestra because we have to learn so much music so quickly. And then to play some music and just, I'm not trying to learn anything new, but just go back to my favorites.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
all of that's been so wonderful.
I
Fortunately,
love
my husband and I get along.
Well, and that's a good thing too, right? I love
Yes.
that you talk about going back to basics. A lot of our musicians have talked about that. In fact, Brandon Gianetto was saying how he is going back. He's going through the art of the bow, I think is the name of it.
Yes. Hmm.
And it's so interesting to me, if I put on sort of a hat where I'm not a professional musician, to think about the many, many years all of us have been playing, all of the schooling and the practicing that has gone into becoming the musician that we are, and still we work on basics, and still we work on technique. And it's such a metaphor for life, like always coming back to the most important things, don't you think?
And basic, yes. I have to tell you this quick little story, and that is when I was at Indiana University, one of the most famous cellists in the world, Janos Starker, taught there. And I remember one of his classes, master classes, where he was talking to the students about how every morning he would get his cello out of the case and review all the basics, like just get everything totally settled, and then he would start working on his music. And I thought, geez, someone who's touring the world as a famous cellist and they do that? Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So put it on your list, right?
put it on my list. Well, finally I have time for my list.
Right. Yeah, it sounds lovely. So, if you were not a professional musician, what do you think you would be?
That's the greatest question, Kelly. I love that question. So two things, and one of them was way early in life when I was 13 or 14. I really wanted to be a chef. I wanted to go to culinary school and I wanted to have a restaurant. And my dad just said, look, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment just to get going, a 24/7 workload. And then, what if your restaurant fails? So I thought, okay, I'll listen. And then when I was 18, I announced that I wanted to go into music, which I'm not sure made him a whole lot happier. But at the end of my freshman year, I kind of decided I wanted to be a nurse. Like I wanted to be doing something with my hands that was caring and compassionate. I didn't want to be standing in an isolated studio practicing notes. So I talked to my parents about switching degrees, which I'm sure they were rolling their eyes on the other end of the phone. But what came along was a year abroad in Vienna program. So I started to focus in my sophomore year rather than switching degrees on learning German. And I spent that year abroad and it changed my life. So
Mm-hmm.
that was, 40 years ago. So don't ask me to speak any German online, but I mean, on this conversation. But yeah, so those two things.
Oh, well, that's so interesting. And it's so interesting how our life can take different twists and turns. And, we all end up exactly where we're supposed to be, I think.
I think my daughter's a nurse, so I feel like I'm living vicariously through her
Oh, isn't
empathy and
that
compassion. Yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting. So you somehow have passed that along
I guess. Yeah.
to her. So right now in quarantine, you're practicing a lot, you're doing a lot of basics, and one of the things that you told me you were excited to share with everyone is a little bit about your instrument.
I
And
am.
we have had questions. We've had people ask us, like, have the musicians tell us about their instruments. And so, why don't you tell us a little bit about your violin?
Well, I have a beautiful family of musical children. My first instrument that I play all the time is also the most expensive and the best quality. It's made in 1941 modern Italian by Vittorio Bellarosa, and I just love the name Bellarosa, but it's got a rich dark red brown varnish and an equally rich sound. I just love having it up against my chin. Second, probably most interesting instrument is also Italian. This one is Sicilian, and that's Vincenzo Panormo, who lived between 1734 and 1813, although I don't have a date of the actual make of this violin. But I'm going to hold it up because he engraved or inlaid, I'm trying to figure out where I have to go here,
Here we go.
inlaid this beautiful Italian village in the back of the violin, which again, it's just such a beautiful little person. The third instrument I bought from a friend who was desperate to sell something because he just didn't have any money, and I fell in love with it. I call it my fragile old man. It's an 18th century German violin with no specific maker or date, but the deal was I would sell it back to him when I was sort of, finished with it, and he died a couple of years ago
Oh.
in Indonesia, and I don't know anything about his family or anything. So here it is. I guess it's mine for life.
Mhm.
And then fourth, but not last, but not least, is my viola, which is a beautiful little viola made in 1793. If you can think about that date, which was 2 years after Mozart died.
Wow.
And it was made in Germany by a guy named Carl Friedrich Lippold. And it's small. It fits my hand as a violinist. I'm not finding myself playing it that often right now, but it's one of my babies. And then I
Mhm.
have a whole host of bows from very expensive, which I hardly play because it's so valuable, down to my carbon fiber bow, which is the one I use outside and in the pit. And
Yeah.
then again, last but not least, my Baroque bow, which is shaped differently than the modern bow, and I use it for anything in small groups of Baroque players.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
I always find thinking about very old instruments fascinating as a flute player because our instruments, the ones that we play, first of all, didn't even exist in that form back when the violin that you're talking about, 1793. I mean, like the flutes were completely different, not as many keys, not made out of the same material. And so it's always
Right.
fascinating to me to think about how violins are still the same.
I know, it's remarkable. The design is exactly the same with a tiny few modifications
Yeah.
for, and the thing is, you think about it, we've gone from the Baroque bow, which is very light and very short, to a really much heavier and much more powerful modern bow. And you'd think that with these, instruments from the 16 and 1700s, that could easily just crack them, shatter them
Yeah.
when you try to get that kind of sound out of them. But um, they still seem, the old Italians, Guarneri and yeah,
They knew what
Stradivari
they were
are
doing.
still what people want to play. They
Yeah.
did.
Well, Renee, who is a friend of mine, actually is on the watching today, and she said the violin is just beautiful.
It is
So,
beautiful.
yeah.
I was attracted to it from the minute I heard it. Of course,
Oh,
I
I
didn't
love
sound
that.
very good for a long time. I think my parents were actually regretting the choice of giving me a violin, but
Mhm. No more.
yeah.
So what are you listening to right now?
That's a great question. And the first shout out I want to give to is our Symphoria colleagues who've posted some amazing stuff. Noemi Miloradovich and her husband Spencer Phillips, who did an awesome rendition of Bottesini Grand Duo, Edgar Tomajian and his wife Jessica Klein, an incredibly virtuosic version of the Handel Halverson, Greg Wood, some beautiful Bach, you and Shui and your beautiful flute duet that came in probably now a month ago at least, right?
Oh
Um,
yeah, maybe two.
Maybe two. So all of that beautiful stuff. And then I'm a violin nerd. I tend to like to listen to violinists. So favorites are Augustin Hodelick, who's posting daily his solo stuff himself, accompanying himself on the piano, and then also some master classes about how to manage some violin technique issues. And then, of course, Rachel Barton Pine, Hilary Hahn, two young soloists you wouldn't have heard of, but they're both friends of mine. Christian with a CR, Stiin, Fatu, Fatu, a Romanian violinist who lives in LA who's on Facebook. Definitely worth checking out. And a young Canadian violinist who lives in New York, Christina Bowie, Bouey, who's the first violinist of an award-winning quartet, the Ulysses Quartet. But she's also a soloist in her own right, and she's, I think, only in her 20s. So both worth checking out if you can.
Well,
And
and you know what I've been telling people when they give us their music recommendations is if you don't mind going back into the comments after we're done, and you can maybe post a link to their Facebook page and give
oh,
them a shout
sure.
out, and then that makes it easy for people to go check them out because I know that people would be interested in that.
Sure, so easy. And there's one more I want to mention, and that is there's a classically quarantined website where classical musicians are just playing stuff from home and putting it out there, and it's really fun to watch. It's really
Oh,
fun
I
to do
love
it.
that.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I've seen, it's mostly string players and pianists and vocalists, but I'm sure there's more out there if I pursue
Mhm.
it. Yeah. So
I love that. I love that. So it's been some time since we've been on stage together. And I'm curious to know, what are you most looking forward to when we're able to play on stage together again?
well, let me talk about what I'm missing. So the orchestra's a team. We meet a couple of days before any concert and we work together to come up with an artistic performance of what we're going to perform. And then, of course, we've got the audience. Once we see them coming in the door, that's exciting. We've got the applause. That's all wonderful. And then we're a family. You know, we have breaks in the middle of rehearsals where we socialize. We go out to dinner or lunch in between two rehearsals and socialize. And I think as awesome as social media is, and thank heavens for it in this time of quarantine, but it's just not the same as being together. So what I'm craving is actually being able to hug people, get on stage together, form an artistic performance of whatever it's going to be, and see the audience in the hall. Like emotionally,
Mhm.
that just feels like a hole in my heart right now.
Yeah, and that's not something that we can get when we have to be in our houses away from each other, unfortunately.
Right. Right. It's
Yeah.
better than nothing, though, you have to admit.
It is. And you
Yeah.
know, I think that it's so I love being on stage with you as a colleague, and it's so interesting to me because you see how things come full circle. And so I will share, and many people know that your husband Grant used to conduct for the Syracuse Symphony, pops concerts and kids concerts, and he was also my conductor when I was in grad school at Ithaca College. And so whenever he comes up for a concert, it feels a little bit like, oh wow, here I am on stage. Like I've really graduated and become like
Yeah.
a full-fledged musician.
You totally have, Kelly, and I have to say that we often sit sort of near to each other in the orchestra setup, and
Mhm.
it's just so wonderful hearing what a beautiful flute player you are.
Oh, well, thank you. I didn't say that
Uh,
to get a compliment, but I will take it anyway.
you
So
deserve one anyway, so
thank
yes.
you. Thank you. Yeah, the second violinists have a love-hate relationship with me because sometimes it sounds beautiful and sometimes they need earplugs when I'm playing piccolo.
Or a
So,
shield, earplugs
or
and a shield. No, you're a pretty delicate and elegant piccolo player. There are some who are, you just want to move to the other side of the stage.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you ever have to do that, I won't take offense.
Oh.
So Rachel Koth, our principal bassoonist, is watching, and she says she misses breaks and lunch outings too. Like it's a
I
really big part of
know.
what we do together.
I know.
So
It's such a family, and some people have been in this family for more than 20 years,
it's true. It's
you
true.
know.
Mhm.
So,
So I want to get to your lightning round questions provided
okay.
by our very own orchestra manager, John Mosbo, who I interviewed on Monday. And if you haven't
Okay.
seen the interview, you should definitely go take a look on Facebook or on YouTube and watch that. But
Okay, for
I
sure.
think that these are going to be great. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Um, what is the better violin concerto, Beethoven or Tchaikovsky?
For me, Beethoven.
Okay.
I love the elegance. Tchaikovsky's flashy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two different beasts, so to speak.
Two totally different beasts like apples and oranges, but I'll say Beethoven.
Okay. What do you think is the better sports town? Wheeling, West Virginia, or Syracuse, New York?
Syracuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good choice,
I don't know
Margie.
anything about sports and wheeling, seriously. So that was
Mhm.
a no-brainer.
Yeah. Okay, good. What's your favorite movie that you've seen in the last few years?
Oh boy, that's tough because I haven't seen very many. Uh, can I register a show instead?
Yes.
So we've been watching Foyle's War, Foyles War, which is a detective in Britain set against the backdrop of World War II, and it's a really, really beautiful series.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
and it's got absolutely beautiful woodwind music throughout. So I just have to say we haven't gone to that many movies, but right now we're watching Waco on Netflix.
Which is
Yeah,
also very uh, surprising and insightful, I think.
it is compared to what I knew about it back in the 19
Mhm.
whatever it was 97 or something.
For
Sorry,
sure.
John, couldn't get that one.
That's all right. What's your favorite vacation spot?
Oh gosh, Salzburg, Austria.
The
Not that I've been there
mountains.
for years, but I love the mountains.
I'm a mountain girl also.
Yeah, I think you're either
Mhm.
beach or mountains.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
I'm definitely mountains.
yeah. High
And
five.
what's your favorite way to exercise?
Right now, walking. Believe it or not, I used to be big into strength training. I was in a class called Women on Weights, or WOW. But since we've moved, I haven't found anything similar. And of course, lately with the quarantine, all the gyms have been closed. So right now it's walking.
And I've been walking a lot too, and my dog's getting skinny. She's lost a little of her winter pudge because I've been walking so much. And I think too, it's more than just exercise. Like being outside, it's so healing, I
It is
think.
so healing. Yeah. I
Mhm.
hope you have a nice place to walk. We do.
I do. I live really close to a wildlife management area that I can walk to from my house, and there's trails
Oh,
there.
super. That's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, Margie, thank you so much for being here with us today and for inviting us into your home, into your studio, and into your life. We so appreciate you. And I can't wait to see you soon and go out to lunch and give you a hug and play music with you.
Exactly, Kelly. And beautiful job. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon.